Okay, now we're going to learn how to take a point and actually plot and get our azimuth from it. So just like yesterday, we start with our grid, 91396529. I'm going to look here. We've got 91 and 65 brings us to right there. Put our protractor on there. We go over 39 and up to 9, and we're right there at that gravel pit. So let's say we want to get to our gravel pit from this intersection right here. Intersections are easy to find. We can get to that spot, no problem. And we want to go from this point to this point right there. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our protractor, use it as a straight edge, line it up just like that. And now it's important not to just draw a line right there, make a line. You're going to mark up your map. Instead, what you're going to do is extend it in an area where you're not going to need it. So that is our line. And what we'll do now, let me back it out a little bit. Put your protractor on your starting point right there. Make sure the crosshairs are nice and parallel and perpendicular with all of the grid lines. And we see our line right there. Puts us over. Make sure we're using the inner lines. That's degrees. The outside is mils. So if you're looking at like 2800, that's obviously not a number between 0 and 360 degrees. So what we'll look down here, and we've got 124 degrees. 124 degrees. That is our grid azimuth. Now, this is really important. This is where a lot of people get lost. There are multiple norths. Where the grid lines meet, all at the top of the globe, that is our grid north. And then there's also magnetic north, which is based on the magnetic poles, and that moves around. So that changes year to year. If you see old maps, the magnetic north is actually different. But here, all these maps should have a GM angle, and this is your key. This is your transition. This, we'll just say 11 degrees for simplicity, and that is the difference. So when we say we're going from here to there, there's an 11 degree difference between what your map says and what your compass says. So what we're going to do is use something called GM LARS, and I'll put an image up in a second. If you're going grid to magnetic, if the arrow is to the left, you add the angle. If the arrow is to the right, you subtract it. So here in Rochester, New York, our GM angle, based on just our geographic location, the arrow is to the left. Our angle is 11 degrees. So left add, right subtract if we're going grid to magnetic. So if you're going from a map to a compass, going grid to magnetic, we are going to be taking our 124 degrees and we're going to be adding, left add that 11 degrees. So that turns into 135 right there. So when you bring your actual, zoom out, when you bring your actual compass, you are going to be following 135. Went too far. 135 degrees. And setting that up, got 135. I'll just dial it in a little bit there. And then that is the direction you want to follow. And you put the arrow, the red spot in the red arrow in the larger arrow, and that is the direction you would be walking. Okay? Another thing to add before I forget, another way you can do this, if you don't want to keep marking up your map, if you want just quick stuff, you can punch that little hole in the middle of your protractor, feed a piece of 550 cord through, so you can just put your center point there, and then you can see whatever angle you want to go at. And you don't even need to mark it. You can just say, oh, gravel pit, 124, easy, just like that. Also, when you're doing this, do your best to use a mechanical pencil. It's nice to be able to erase lines, and also use a 0.5 millimeter piece, because when you're using like a thick, heavy 0.7 millimeter or a pen, these lines get really, really big, and you can see we're covering a lot of space here. So it's important that we're not making big fat lines, because that just increases your margin of error. next time we'll talk about actually like land nav techniques so you don't actually get lost as you walk from point A to point B, because that happens a lot too. Thanks for watching.